California Governor Gavin Newsom has vetoed legislation in the state of California that would have required human drivers to be present in self-driving trucks on public roads. Now, I do think that maybe we will come to a day where we can trust the technology and have 10,000-pound trucks, serve as autonomous vehicles on our roads. I don't think we're there yet, but nonetheless, the legislation vetoed Friday night would have banned self-driving trucks weighing more than 10,000 pounds, ranging from UPS delivery vans to massive big rigs, from operating on public roads unless a human driver is on board. Now look, there are two reasons why the supporters of this legislation voted in favor of it. At issue are jobs, but there's also some issue with the lack of safety because there have been a number of pretty big collisions. So people are concerned about kind of putting the cart before the horse and allowing these vehicles to operate on public roads, which have caused problems for regular civilians and also for EMS and fire departments. So Newsom has said that he's vetoing the legislation because existing regulations are sufficient. I'm gonna show you the receipts to prove that they are not. Newsom pointed to 2012 legislation that allows the State Department of Motor Vehicles to work with the California Highway Patrol, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and others with relevant experience or expertise to determine the regulations necessary for the safe operation of autonomous vehicles on public roads. We also have lawmakers, and they voted to essentially restrict this and regulate it to some extent until it's safe to have these on the roads, but he vetoed that. And as of September 20th of 2023, the DMV has received 655 autonomous vehicle collision reports, which some experts say is actually an underestimate, but that only has to do with collisions. There are other giant issues with autonomous vehicles on public roads. Now, Newsom, who typically enjoys strong support from labor, faced some pressure from within his administration not to sign it, meaning they wanted him to veto the bill. His administration's Office of Business and Economic Development says it would push companies making self-driving technologies to move out of state. I mean, I think the chaos and poor management of the state has also led to a lot of people moving out of state. Maybe they should deal with that first, but they can't be bothered. Cenk.
Yeah, so I remember when LASIK surgeries came out, the ones for the eyes, and I thought, I'm gonna let others do it first. Now, as it turned out, those turned out to be perfectly fine, right? And once you find, now I never wound up having it, but after 10 years or so of other people having it and their eyes not falling out, I realized, well, it works fine. With autonomous vehicles, like I don't think that they're definitely going to be worse than human drivers. Human drivers are pretty bad to begin with. I mean, if you're a member of Young Turks, you've heard me tell you my stories. So you might rather have an autonomous car than have me drive. And humans make thousands of mistakes all the time. So it's not like we're the gold standard or anything. But this has got to get proven out a lot better before we start saying the trucks.
Big rigs.
Big rigs can cause enormous collisions. I mean, it's one thing when cars get into an accident, that's already terrible enough. I saw a gruesome one just a couple of days ago, a car on fire. I don't want to talk about it, but when a rig rolls over, there could be explosions, there could be tons of cars that are affected. Then the cars pile up, depending on if it's on a highway, etc. So that should be the very last part. Like, okay, we've proven this 1,000 ways over that it's safer than humans, so we're now going to the trucks. You don't just jump to, let's try it with the trucks and see what happens. And that number of accidents that have already happened with autonomous vehicles is not that comforting. Now, it's a big state, so that's not a giant number within the context of how many people are. But remember, it's not like everybody in the state has an autonomous driving car.
This is mostly in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
This is mostly in the Bay Area. It's really important to keep that in mind when you look at that 655 collision figure. But I want to give you some other data on this that I think is super relevant, and it doesn't even pertain to trucks or big rigs. So in San Francisco, 2 robo-taxi companies got approval last month from state regulators to operate in the city at all hours. So these are autonomous robo-taxis. And there have been some issues. For instance, as CNBC reports, a Cruise self-driving car was involved in a crash with a San Francisco Fire Department truck just 1 week after California regulators approved 24/7 robo-taxi service in San Francisco. One person was taken to a hospital via ambulance with what the company, keep in mind this is the company, saying that there were non-severe injuries, okay? San Francisco firefighters, this is super relevant, had expressed concern about the rollout before the incident occurred. Quote, "Our folks cannot be paying attention to an autonomous vehicle when we've got ladders to throw," San Francisco Fire Chief Janine Nicholson said at a public meeting ahead of the commission's approval. Nicholson cited multiple instances of self-driving vehicles obstructing emergency operations in the meeting, including blocking firehouse doors, running through emergency tape, and obstructing roadways. Officials from the city's fire department, police department, and municipal transportation agency prepared a report of at least 600 incidents with driverless vehicles since June of 2022, including unpredictable operations near an emergency response zone, obstructing travel to an emergency, contact or near misses with personnel or equipment, and more. So this is outside of the collisions that the Department of Motor Vehicles has been keeping tabs on. So aside from the collisions, clearly there are other massive issues. And look, I'm not saying that there won't come a day when these trucks can operate without an actual human within them. But it's too early. It's way too early. It's clear it's way too early, but they don't care. They're gonna move forward anyway because this is what the business community wants. And the threat is, if you don't give us what we want, then we're gonna move to a different state.
Yeah, look, I'm super unbiased here, and partly because of my own perspective that I've seen plenty of crappy human drivers, including myself. And so I don't want to use just selective evidence. Oh, we only tell you when the robot cars cause accidents, but we don't tell you when the humans cause gross accidents, right? Like maybe hitting 3 cars at once in a KFC parking lot, maybe.
But when you do that, when you somehow miraculously crash into 3 different cars in the KFC parking lot, Cenk, the vehicle owners know who to come to for the resources, right? They know to come to you and basically demand that your insurance pay for the damages.
Right.
I'm a little bit worried this is gonna be further down the line. Like, what kind of deregulation are these companies gonna secure when it comes to basically skirting responsibility for the collisions their autonomous vehicles cause?
Anna, you went to where I was going. So, okay, so, but on the other hand, guys, when companies step into the mix, I would say bribe, and the rest of the reporters would say give campaign contributions to politicians because they happen to agree. When they step into the mix, then all of a sudden you disperse accountability. So the famous example I give you guys all the time is the largest Medicare fraud in history is done by Rick Scott's company. The company is found guilty of fraud, but none of the employees are, none of the executives are, including Rick Scott. Rick Scott doesn't go to jail, he gets $300 million bonus for that robbery well done. And now we've shown you a bunch of cases where the courts say the company did something terrible, they're guilty. And then nothing happens. They pay a small fine out of their profits and no one goes to jail. So it's a weird way of completely avoiding responsibility for anything, including life and death situations. So we have to be extraordinarily careful, especially when it's related to companies like this. Now, which leads me to his business office, Newsom's business office, saying, whoa, Gavin, let's make sure we back the companies here rather than the voters. Well, look, sometimes when governors look out for business, or any politician looks out for business interests, it can be totally legitimate. And in fact, somebody at the book signing in New York thanked me for sticking up for small businesses. There's a lot of small businesses and sometimes they get steamrolled. And if a legislator is looking out for them, good, wonderful, okay? And you should balance interests no matter what all the time, right? But most of the time in politics these days, when they say they're looking out for business interests, that means they're looking out for their donors. And so Well, we have to balance interests these days with as corrupt as politics is in America. Usually means, no, we're gonna do whatever our donors tell us to do. And if it turns out they're not quite ready, but we're gonna unleash a squadron of big rigs with nobody driving them, as long as I'm getting my campaign donations, I'm good with it. That makes me really, really worried.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the situation we're in here.
So look, Newsom, I have no doubt, is planning to run for president. If it's not gonna be in 2024, it'll be in 2028. And so maybe he should consider how it's gonna look when he vetoes legislation that could lead to severe injuries and potentially death as a result of collisions with autonomous big rigs. But it's the governor of California. It's not like he cares about people's lives anyway.
If you enjoyed this video, that's because of our members. They make us independent, they make us strong, and they make us honest. Become a member today by hitting the join button below.